Hi, I'm Anna, and this is my April wrap-up. So in April, I read and finished a total of 14 books, which is not bad, not good, but it's fine for me. From those 14 books, 8 were audiobooks, 4 were ebooks, and just 2 were physical books. So I'll start with my ratings and a little summary from the books. The first book was The Raven Cycle by Maggie Stiefvater. It was the second time I listened to it. I decided to give it a second chance, but then it came up as a 2.5. I rounded it up to 3 stars. I was not that interested. I didn't feel there was much really happening except for some intrigue. Just not that invested. I think that book is not for me. Sorry, because I know this is an unpopular opinion. And this is YA fantasy paranormal mystery. Second book was The Last of the Fire Drakes by Farume Boy. This is the first one in a series. I don't know how many books there are, but the series is called The Avalonia Chronicles, and I got it for free on Amazon. I don't know if it's still free, but I absolutely loved this book. I gave it 4.5 stars, which is quite high for me. I was not expecting to like it as much. It is a YA fantasy, and I love the fantasy elements. It did sound to me like partly these academia vibes, not dark, but ish, even though it doesn't happen at school or at a university. But it has, the book nobody's mentioning anymore vibes, and it also has Inkheart vibes. If you haven't read it, I highly recommend you to read Inkheart. But yeah, this thing, I quite like this book. 4.5 stars. I rounded it down to 4, but I would highly recommend. It's quite entertaining. I got engaged into the world. World building is quite nice, properly done, developed, characters. You get to really know each of the characters. I think they're properly built. Nothing is perfect in there or in them. I don't know. I love this. There's some romance in it, so highly recommend it. Next, I listened to Secrets of Bennett Hall by Jordan Elizabeth. This is like the 4th book I listened to by the author. This is the 2nd one in the Return to Amsterdam series, but you don't need to have read the first one to get to this one. I really liked this book. It was 4 stars from me. I was engaged in the story. It was 3.5 stars for me. I really liked this story. It gave me like this Frankenstein-ish vibes. It's kind of a mystery thriller, and the story is that there's these people who can reincarnate and remember previous lives somehow. I don't know how to put it, not to spoil it, but there's an interesting mystery and like a coming back to life thingy. So, quite enjoy it. Then I read The Scarlet Letter by Nathaniel Hawthorne. This is an adult classic book, and it's the story of women who are adulterers that are forced to wear a big red A on their breast. And this is the story of one of those women who were forced to do that, and all her ordeal and her life growing, bringing up her child, and her child ends up, there are like supernatural elements, but I quite enjoyed it. I liked the characters, I liked the story, even though I hated that fact, but you understand at the point, and it's a criticism of that extreme moral views. So quite interesting, 4 stars for me, liked it more than expected. Then I listened to Vampires of Portlandia by Jason Tannemer. This was also kind of given to me by the author in exchange for an honest review, and it was a 2.5 star for me. It's the story of a family of vampires in modern Portland, and they don't they don't kill people anymore, and then there are other supernatural beings, but there's the story of this young vampire who was kind of adopted by this family and turns up being the head of the family. And yeah, it was a little bit empty though. I needed to know a lot more from the background. It would have been nice. So the story, the background story, and the politics issue in the Philippines. Oh, they're from the Philippines, and the politics issues from the Philippines were told in depth. It's a YA contemporary paranormal. But yeah, I mean, I thought it was a little teeny tiny bit empty. Next, I finished The World of Ascension by Brandon Sanderson. Finally, yay! I'm counting it this month because that's when I finished it, merely based on that. But I read more than 300 pages from it this month, so it's fair enough. And this is the second one, for those who don't know, is by Brandon Sanderson, and it's an adult epic fantasy or high fantasy. And it is the second one in the Mistborn trilogy in a huge cosmere world. And basically in the first one we follow Kelsia, who had some hard experiences with the Lord Ruler, the person who rules everywhere. And he's getting together a group of people to take him down. And I cannot tell you anything else. What I can tell you is that this is the magic system, the world building is amazing, magic system is great, characters are properly built, everything is logical. No, I'm in love with Brandon Sanderson, and I'm a Brandon converted follower. So there's a magic system based on managing metals. So there are 8 metals that, and normally one person, not everyone can do magic with metals, but those who can are supposed to come from nobility somehow, even if it's just on one side of the family. And each metal gives you a certain power. Then I listened to Siege and Storm by Lee Bardugo. This is the second one in the Grishaverse trilogy. It's a YA fantasy. And basically at the beginning of the story we have Elena and Mal, who are childhood friends. And they're sent to the army, to war. They get there and then start having, more things happen. There's this other main character that appears on the bad side that is the Darkling. I'm sure most of you, if not all of you, already know the story, so I don't want to tell you much. Don't want to say blood in it, but I gave it 3 stars. Then I listened to The Empress of Soul and Fortune by Nhi Vo. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Sorry if I'm not. And this is the first one in the series, Singing Hill Cycle, and is Chinese mythology inspired book, and I really enjoyed this. I listened to it and I thought the narrator was amazing. Characters were properly done, like you could clearly differentiate between characters, and it's a short read that's worth a go. And it is an adult fantasy with LGBT representation. Then I also listened to The Kindred by Luke Walker. Shamefully, I gave this book 2 stars. I thought the narrator was making it so hard to follow a line, because he would use the exact same intonation in every single sentence from beginning to end. It was like 2 or 3 sentences that were like different, but it wasn't easy. And I don't know, I thought there was like a lot of plot, if I don't know if it makes sense. It's a post-apocalyptic dystopian, but it gave me like The Walking Dead vibes, but there are no zombies. It's just that there was a nuclear war and in the UK, and there's just not many people, and then the world is quite dangerous, and they're fighting to survive and killing others and stuff, and that's all I can tell you about it, because I thought it was missing a lot of depth. Then I read The Shadow Man by Helen Fields. If you watched my last vlog, you'll know And I also have a review. I'll link my book review down here. I absolutely love this one. This is an adult thriller, and it takes place in Edinburgh. And this basically is the story of Connie. Connie is a forensic psychologist from the States, and she's sent to Edinburgh to help the police solve a case. And she's paired with Barda. Barda is a great gentleman from Eton, and you know, he has to be correct and perfect, but then she basically allows him to be himself, and she starts opening up on stuff that happened to her throughout her life. I cannot tell you if they solved the case or not, but there's a person that's kidnapping people. I'm only going to tell you that. Watch my review if you're interested in the book. It's totally worth it. I gave this book 5 stars too, and it's so incredibly documented. And I could tell you many things, but watch the review if you're interested. That's it. I'm not going to make this video so much longer. Then I listened to Rune and Rising, the third one in the Grishaverse trilogy by Lee Bardugo again. And this is a YA fantasy. And I cannot tell you much because I spoiled it, so take my word for the second one, and I gave this one also 3 stars. Then I read The Little Book of Hygge, the Danish Secrets to Happy Living by Mick Viking, and absolutely loved this thing. I tapped it quite a lot. I thought it was so beautiful and heartwarming. To summarize, the 2 main things to live happily is to be clear in that less is more sometimes, or most times, and that sharing with your loved ones is what makes your life a lot happier. Oh, and this is a non-fiction, just based on the Danish traditions about hygge, which is basically comfort and happiness, although it means much more than that. And this was 5 stars. Then I listened to The Bookshop on the Corner by Jenny Colgan. This is an adult contemporary story in which there's a woman who's from Birmingham and decides to move somewhere else because her dream is to set up a bookstore. And it was so beautiful and heartwarming too. But shamefully, I felt the characters were too childish. We're doing stupid things all the time, and they were all adults. So yeah, character building, I wouldn't agree. I think they were more like 14 instead of adults, or even less if you want. But the atmosphere is beautiful. The little town in Scotland, the imagery you get in your head is amazing. And I gave it 3 stars. Then I read Half a World Away by Cynthia Karohata, and this is supposed to be a middle grade. It's the story of a child from Romania that gets adopted by an American family, and then this family a few years later wants to adopt another child, and this child is from Kazakhstan. So he starts getting like a bit jealous, and it's all his journey, his feelings, since he was abandoned by his birth mother, and you know, like everything he feels along the way on, since he finds out they're going to adopt another child, and their adaptation process. I don't think it's a middle grade, although maybe a child between 8 and 12 would be able to read it and understand some things. But if you read it as an adult, because it's quite deep, I think you'll enjoy it a lot more. So with Half a World Away, this is the end of this wrap up. I hope you liked this video. Please hit like if you did. Let me know, comment down here what you read in the month of April, how much you liked them or didn't. If you have any recommendation based on these books and how much I liked or disliked them. Anything you want to tell me, I'll be happy to chat with you down here. And if you like my videos, don't forget to subscribe to my channel, click the bell for notifications, and hope to see you soon back in my channel. Bye!